Heather, thank you for coming on the show. Please take a few moments and tell me a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
John, thank you so much for having me. I'm Heather Stewart. I have been a learning and development professional for almost 20 years, not to age myself. I started at age 12. Um, I started in operational learning for some heavy hitter brands like Applebee's and Pinkberry, and kind of worked my way up through into more global companies and doing both operational and then moving into talent development, really focusing on onboarding and leadership training. And that's where I sit now, pepper in a little bit of that engagement piece too, because, we like to be jack of all trades in our careers.
I see. Yeah, the HR focus definitely is on engagement. And,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh, yeah.
since you have such let's see, I don't want to say long, but since you have such a rich history in
Yes.
right? From your early years when you were 12 and just starting in this business, any major changes like from then till now that you think um, are impacting like how people show up at work and what they need?
I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot. I think the biggest one that I've noticed is the switch. There's two. They're all coming to me now. The
Okay.
switch from productivity to personality. So where it was like, get your stuff done, no matter how long it takes. If you're a good worker, it doesn't matter if you get along with everybody else, to
Uh-huh.
kind of not only do we want you to do your job, but we want you to be a good person as well, and fit in with the team. And that kind of leads to the other thing where I remember early on in my career, we would get evaluations. I did new restaurant openings for Applebee's, and we'd get an evaluation at the end of every opening. And a lot of times it would be like, well, you're not great at this, so you have to work on this, but you're good at all this other stuff. Whereas now I think we're building on people's strengths and building teams around those strengths versus making everyone a generalist. You could be a specialist, specialist, specialist. And now we have this team of people who are not only good at what they're doing, but excited to do it. Because when you're good at what you're, when you're good at it, you're excited. I'm not a math person. I have to do budgets, but don't make me be in charge of the money all the time to make me well-rounded. Find someone else who's really good at that and build a team that are all excited and informed and feel confident and comfortable in their role.
So they then have the strengths and then can contribute in a meaningful way. And then I imagine
Yeah.
on a team like that, people feel a little more engaged, a little more like they fit in or belong, right?
Yeah, and they engage with one another more because I need you. I need your strength to build upon my opportunities. Maybe I'll learn from you. Maybe you'll show me a way to get excited about this thing I'm not excited about. So I think the move has really been from everyone being good at everything to building teams of different personalities, of different strengths, to create the best possible kind of epicenter for whatever role you're doing.
I love it. And it's very idealistic, but in reality, it seems like it might be hard to find that fit where everybody gets to do what they're good at and wants
Yes.
to do. How do you prepare folks or equip them with the tools they need to handle having to do stuff they don't want to do?
I mean, I think, there's get tos and have tos everywhere in life, right?
Indeed.
We have to do things all the time. I think supporting my team, I can think right now, I have someone on my team who really loves that engagement side, and the professional development side, but we still have to, like I said, we still have to worry about budgets. We still have to worry about, the administration of it all, and giving them small tasks just to learn it and to understand it so that we can back each other up. I have an admin and I have a PD partner. My admin does all the admin work, but if she suddenly got abducted by aliens, it would be on me and my other person to do it. So we need to know how to do it. And I frame it in the way that we're all supporting each other. We're all one team. Maybe it's not your main focus and maybe it's not the main fun for you, but we have to do it every once in a while in order for all of us to be successful.
Right. So even in the subtle misery of having to do stuff you don't like. If it's spread out, it's kind of commiserating, and people can realize like, okay, we all have to do this to some degree. So it's just part of the daily grind. So,
Yeah, and we're all in it together. You know, there's nothing I would ask people who report to me to do that I wouldn't do. There, my job is different. My job is more strategy now, but I
mhm.
also, when we're in the weeds, I'm gonna get in the weeds with you. You know, I'm gonna pick up that hoe and rake and all of those things.
Yeah, I love it. Even if you're not perfect at it, you're gonna like do what needs to
Yes.
be done.
And I am not. I make mistakes all the time. My admin catches, I did something yesterday because she was off. She had a birthday, and I said, can you check this? I did it yesterday. Can you check it for me? She's like, you did great. I was like, awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, you mentioned some leadership development as part of the development. What do you think are like some of the top or highly sought after or needed skills today in the context of all of these changes that are happening, especially with AI coming in and teams and makeup changing, generations being working together, all kinds of different mindsets. What do you how do you, what leadership skills should be people should would serve people the most if they were to have them?
Yeah, I love that you call them leadership skills because I think a lot of people are like soft skills. People need soft skills. They're not soft. They're the hardest ones to learn. I call them essential skills. And something that I've been working on in my current role is what I call task. It's transparent, accountable, supportive, and kind. And I think those are the four big things that a lot of people, if you're a leader, if you can do those four things, your team's going to feel supportive. I mean, obviously there's tons of other leadership tools you need, being good at supporting people through change, but all that. But if you're transparent to the point you can be, I get as leaders, we can't tell everybody everything. But even saying, I'm not at liberty to talk about this, that's being transparent, being
Right.
accountable, admitting when you make mistakes and holding people accountable when they make mistakes, giving good feedback, being supportive, supporting whatever their goals are, and whatever you've given them to do. And then I think kindness is of underrated. I mean, I think that one of the things that especially people coming into corporate America now are expecting is empathy. And we didn't have that before. And a little kindness goes a long way. I think just, you know, uh, seeking to understand why people make the decisions they do or why they do what they do before jumping to conclusions and judgment, um, and having those hard conversations with people when they're not hitting the mark. That's kind. Because just letting them sit there and stew in their mistakes or letting them continue to make mistakes while you get frustrated is
Mm.
not helping anybody.
So it's kind, but initially it may feel like a little bit of a
Yeah.
thing if you're having to get some corrective or critical feedback in a moment where it's needed.
Yeah, it feels hard, but in the long run, I would rather have a relationship with the people I work with or who work for me or who I work for, where I can have a open and honest conversation about what I could do better, what they could do better, um, and not expecting them to read my mind or read my facial expressions, and I'd rather go up to someone and say, "Hey, I noticed you did this. Can you explain to me why?" Cool. This is how it should be done, and this is why. And I'm not against your way, but this way is going to make it easier. It's what's expected, and that could be for anything. It could be how you answer the phone. It could be how you do a task. It could be how you build a training. Um, it could be how you treat someone or write an email. But all of those things, like you have to give that feedback. Um, and in the long run, it's kinder to give the feedback than to hold it in.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the task framework. The supportive and kind seem like they'd be pretty like easy to say and conceptualize, but that could be different from person to person. How do you understand or get to what someone needs from a support perspective?
I mean, I think we expect people to bring their whole selves to work now,
Yeah,
right? Like, like be yourself and everyone's different, but do we actually subscribe to that, right? Like we can't treat everyone the same.
right,
So, a lot of people are like, I've always heard, the golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated. No, it's the platinum rule. You treat people the way they want to be treated. It's as silly as like I have one person who loves her birthday and wants cards and balloons and all that, and another one who wants you to not mention it at all. And that's what you have to do, right? I mean, that's silly, but I'm not going to treat everyone the same way when it comes to how they grow, how they developed. I have someone who is a high achiever, wants to keep moving forward, is like, what's next? Give me something. And I have another one who's super happy to come in at 8, work till 5, do the stuff from 8 to 5 and leave. And she's like, I don't want to grow. I want to continue to do this. So how do I keep them both engaged? How do I keep them both feeling supported? How do I keep them both learning and growing? Because the one who works 8 to 5, yeah, this is the only job she wants, but she doesn't want to stagnate either. If
right.
I give her a small project, she's excited. So it's really getting to know your team, getting to know the people. And then when you're building something you know, at a larger level, it's ensuring that, if I'm building a training or a leadership program, do I have in person, online? Do I have opportunity for people to watch podcasts like this? Do I have people, a TED talk that will talk about it too? So I'm hitting all the different kinds of learners too. So it's really, you can't just, there's not a one-stop shop for anything anymore,
No,
which
no,
is hard.
yeah, and I feel like it requires getting to know people a little bit more than I think we've had to,
Yeah.
a decade ago in the workplace. Um, and I feel like you seem like a natural at getting to know people. I wonder, how do you basically teach that kindness part of and I'm hearing kindness, but I'm also hearing like genuine curiosity about something I don't understand about you, or, that type of interaction. Have you any experiences or, people overcoming some hurdles around challenges getting to know each other?
Yeah, I think the very first thing for me, and this is a worn out phrase, but leading by example, like I walk that walk, like, and I talk that talk. And I'm the first person when someone's complaining about someone to be like, have you thought about this? Or, like, hey, maybe they're feeling uncomfortable with this too. So let's stop there. Now, I'm wrong sometimes. Let's be honest. Like, not everybody has great intentions, but assuming positive intent is kind of my go-to.
Okay.
Um, and thinking about, past experiences, my role before this, worked with someone who was the opposite of me. I don't we used to call each other the brains and the heart, and I was the heart and she was the brains. And that didn't mean she didn't have heart. And it doesn't mean I don't have brains, but it's how we went think to things first.
Okay.
And so a lot of times the conversation, she reported to me, even though we worked very closely together, a lot of times our conversations were like, I know you're frustrated, but stop and think about, everything, before we started, we were talking about Ted Lasso, and it's that, don't judge right away, like don't rush to judgment, be curious, not judgmental, like stop for a second, think about what's going on, talk to them about it. And a lot of times, if you have a conversation with someone, even though it might not end up the way you want, you'll get a little bit more insight. But you have to have that open communication. And you're absolutely right. It's easier for some of us than it is with others. And it's hard for me too sometimes, if I'm in a situation where I feel judged or, unwelcome, I don't want to go and have a conversation with that person. Obviously,
I mean, who
good,
would?
right?
Yeah.
But and it takes me maybe a longer time, whereas I would walk up to someone I'm comfortable with and just have the conversation, and I have to like pump myself up and make the meeting for 2 weeks from now and get myself going. But it's you have to be able to have that communication if you want to work peacefully with people. You're not going to agree with everyone. Everyone's not the same. Not everyone's going to like you, which is a really hard lesson to learn for someone like me.
It's a hard thing
I'm
to
likable.
accept. Yeah, that, A, no one's likable all the time.
Yeah,
And we think that, especially like if we feel like someone doesn't like us, that there are people out there that are likable all of the time, and no one
yeah,
ever experiences that. But I feel like it's part of the human condition. Like
yeah.
sometimes you're the bright, shining, sought after personality that people want to talk to, and then some people can't stand you. And I agree, that's a very hard one to get over. I can't help but notice that y- your approach seems to create environments that are psychologically safe. Now, you didn't use that term, but what I noticed is that, when working with somebody, like you were like, okay, calm down. You basically are helping someone get their brain regulated, and then you're reappraising the situation so that they can kind of, okay, consider something different, which really is hard to do when you're up in this, like, oh my gosh, your brain's in that threatened state. Um, and then the vulnerability and that kind of leading by example. I hear it in some of the examples that you have, by just kind of admitting your mistakes, asking to be double checked, that sort of thing. Um, what what is it that allows you to do that, but then some other people would try to cover their mistakes and, feel like any interaction with somebody different might be a threat instead of, an opportunity to grow?
I mean, I think at a really high level, I've had leaders in the past that allowed me to make mistakes, and that's who I learned from. Early in my career, I was complaining to a senior leader about my direct leader, and they said, Heather, sometimes what you learn from someone is the way you don't want to lead. And that has stuck with me for a really long time. And so every person I meet teaches me something. And that includes the people who work for me, right? Um, whether it's empathy, whether it's, being calm in a storm, whether it's being
Patience.
tougher,
Yeah.
like I could stand to be a little tougher. I admit it.
Yeah.
Um, and just had leaders that allowed me to make mistakes and not feel bad about them. I don't want people to feel like a mistake is the end of everything. I have felt that way, and that and I have had leaders who made me not feel that way, and which one made me feel better. I'm gonna emulate that person. So I think that's where it all comes from. And lucky enough to grow up in a house where it was the same way. I had parents who were really, you know, let's just, try it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll try something new.
Right. And
That's the
you are
kind
still
of,
intact, worthy
yeah,
person, regardless of how you perform on that
yeah.
kind of thing.
I also have a background in improv, which is a lot of I did some improv with Second City in Hollywood, and I loved it, and it was so fun. But that's again, like you're just putting like that's the way to become more vulnerable, the way to like you're on stage and you have no idea what's coming next, and so and if you make a mistake, you count on the people you're with to save you, and so that's the kind of area I want to build.
I think improv has such powerful possibilities in team building and corporate.
Yeah,
It's powerful, and it's also the butt of so many jokes that it's like, which, if you're an improv, you can definitely handle it because every situation is impermanent and changing, and there's
yeah,
dynamics that can shift so quickly. I also think it's a great tool to build that skill of perception, right?
yeah.
Because sometimes our brains play tricks on us, right? And what we're seeing because of the state of mind we're in isn't what others are seeing, or vice versa. Any tricks in your improv bag or other areas that if they don't have somebody like you to intervene and nudge them to kind of get regulated, what people can do to recognize that they might be seeing things through a filter that isn't necessarily correct, like,
I mean, at the very most basic level, the first thing you learn in improv is yes and, right? You take away the no or the yes but,
mhm,
right? You learn yes and so remembering that yes, this is my perception right now, and something else is happening. Someone else's perception might be different.
mm,
Um, looking at looking at things through the lens of other people, like and looking at the entire environment. I'm thinking about where I am now. There's a little bit of um there's some stuff going on, and people might be short with you, and I think there's stuff going on here, right? That we're in a deep change right now. And so uh
Every
everyone is a little bit on edge about things. And so just remembering that is, I think, important. And remembering that your perception might be your reality. Like a lot of times people are like, perception is reality, and that's not my favorite saying. But it's true for yourself, right? This is my perception, this is where I'm living. But you have to remember that everyone's lens is different. Everyone's background is different. Everyone is um like all of their past experiences are what is lending them to behave the way they are. So, and you have no idea. We have no idea. Even our best friends,
right.
I have, I'm super close with my mom, and I still learn things about her experiences that kind of have lent her into, the way she is as an adult now, right? Like it's all of us have these experiences.
Yeah, I mean they're formative, right? And everybody has them, but not everybody is aware of the impact that they might have on
Yeah.
how they show up in any given situation. Um, I came up against this in a lot of my work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Where it's someone is well seated in their identity as a good person, and now they're getting feedback that they've hurt somebody unintentionally, and people just crumble. Like haven't given skills to answer that, to operate in that way that you say is just like, yeah, I made a mistake because it feels so much higher stakes. And then it creates a conflict internally of how I view myself and my identity versus how the feedback. And then it becomes, oh, it's a lot of work to change me. I might just discount your feedback, or I might, do something to just kind of get out of that situation and potentially pull way back. Um, you know, Building those skills, the kind of self-awareness piece, and accepting that we're all flawed is, I think, a big missing piece in that work. As we kind of look at what's going on and the shifts of diversity, equity, inclusion, and it has to change. But I feel like that was a big gap in the skills. And
Yeah.
I love that it's on your radar, and that whether it's explicit or implicit, you're bringing it to the work that you do, because it's so needed. And you really hit on a lot of things around, like, kind of where I geek out about what's going on in this brain, right? It's like,
Yeah.
um, how do I optimize this so that I can do what I need to do is an ongoing challenge, because I'm typical in some ways and then super unique in others. And it's this exploration that I think I have all types of energy for, but it's a completely foreign concept to some folks. Uh, do do you have a way of empowering or educating folks to build that set of skills so that they can kind of clear everything out and focus on learning something new, dealing with conflict, or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, again, I attempt whenever I'm facilitating a workshop, whatever the session may be about, whatever the topic is or subject is I'm vulnerable. I will tell a story. So if we're talking about changing a mindset, like changing from an individual contributor to a leadership mindset, I will
Mhm.
talk about how I had a mindset change in my personal life to open up that door and to show that the things we're doing in business also affect the rest of the world, And I will, again, that whole piece about being vulnerable, and like, I always think about my first reaction isn't always the best reaction, but I sit with it for a second and then I have my reaction, because I don't I don't want to do things in a way that's not self-aware. And I beat myself up about that all the time too. I often will send an email that's too short, or hey, did you see my email below? Right? Um, and then I'm like, oh, that could have been nicer there, right? But then replying back and saying, hey, I could have been a little bit nicer. Here's what you needed, right? So again, taking accountability. So I think um I feel like I answered your question in a roundabout way, but just
No,
again, like showing showing up and showing like this is who I am. So when also I feel like it lends a little bit of credibility. Like I'm practicing what I preach. Like here's a real story about how I changed my mindset. Here's a real story about how I dealt with change in my life. You
mm,
know, um, uh, I feel like that's how I do it. I don't know that there's a like a concrete way to do it, and it works for me because I like to tell stories. I'm my own favorite subject. So,
well, as humans, we like to hear
yeah,
stories, and I feel like that's a real powerful way to really
yeah.
get learning to stick is if you can relate it to something that makes sense to you. Um,
And ask people to tell theirs and give room and space and time for people to tell theirs once they've gone through the content, especially in an in-person or an online session. It's a little bit harder when you're building e-learning, but
yeah. Um, what is lost then, kind of on that e-learning piece, or that, as AI starts to come and the actual in-person connections and interactions are changing or getting less, like what's lost? I mean,
I mean, I love AI. Please don't get me wrong, but there's a personal connection with people and you're not going to be able to be as vulnerable. So people are going to see you as the box and the screen like we are right now versus like an actual walking, talking human being who has feelings, right? We're in our best behavior right now. When I'm always halfway on my best behavior. But when I'm building an e-learning or when I'm doing something like this or an online class, I'm on my best behavior, right? I'm on stage. Um, but I'm not on stage when I'm sitting at my desk or, you know, walking around my office or whatever. So I think that with that's what we're gonna lose is people are gonna think we're kind of more one-dimensional. But I think AI is a really supportive tool for someone like me who I'm really good at a brain dump, I come up with lots of ideas at once. Using AI as a taking notes, putting all my ideas and letting AI organize them, but not letting it replace my ideas. Like I don't ask AI for ideas. I give AI my ideas and I say, hey, make this make sense.
yeah.
So I think we have to, when it comes to AI coming in, we have to remember that people are still important and AI is a tool to help us, not a tool to replace us.
Well, I love it. In AI, if it doesn't really exemplify just how importance are, just think of how much money, time, energy is going in to create systems that emulate being human.
Yeah.
And they're not even close. Well, from what we know, there's like, the general intelligence, which on first glance seems like would be easier. They can be incredibly smart and detailed, but then incredibly dumb in other ways. And I think that part of the human condition of grief, suffering, loss, resilience are something that AI can't. You can talk about and it can reflect what it's learned from language models, but it can't sit across from you and really empathize in a way that I think is meaningful. But I am so excited for it to get better. There was an old Star Trek episode, uh, Next Generation, Deanna Troi, the psychologist, and I want to try to find it, but they were creating a new version of like what was then, they weren't calling it AI, but it was a support bot. But then it reflected and it looked like you. So you would sit down and literally have a conversation with a reflection of yourself that would ask insightful questions and so I can't wait for it to get to that point where you can actually do some meaningful work. But if you were gonna future proof kind of the up and coming leader with AI and all it can do right now, what's the top skill you think that someone should have?
Look, I name my AI because when the computers take over, I want it to know that I think it's nice and kind. I tell it good morning every time I use it or good day. Um, Oh God, future proof. I think I think that all leaders, future, current, whatever, remember that we are, regardless of how many tools we have, how much software we have, we're still working with people.
Mm,
And people need to be treated like people, not like numbers, not like products.
mhm,
I had a very short tenure at a startup, and I was on a call. I was in my car on a call, um, and they were describing the people that work there as, I blocked it. I can't remember, but it was like as products. And I was like, I can't work here anymore. Like I knew at that moment I couldn't work there anymore. Because I have spent my entire career focused on the people side of things.
mm,
And I just want, I would love it if every leader put people above product, above profits, above everything, all those P's. Because if the people are happy, they're going to make your customers happy. The customers are going to be happy and they're going to spend money. That's going to make your people happy. It's a cycle. And even when in nonprofit work that I've done, we've always been like, okay, how do we get people excited about this? Because then that's how we're going to make the money. So it's everywhere. And we're all behind screens all the time now. I'll be the first one to tell you I probably spent 7 hours this weekend vegetating in front of my television with my dog. But that's how I recharge so I can do things like this and be out and be people focused. So um, uh, I think those are the skills that the Generation Z and Alpha that are coming up we're gonna have to really force on them because they're used to this. This is how they grew up, and it's not their fault,
right.
right?
And it's part of a change. That's
Yeah.
I got to wrap us up here. It's been lovely talking to you. And if I could summarize your future proof, it's the three P's: people, people, people.
Yep. Yes. All three of those.
Heather, thank you so much for taking time to share your expertise with me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.